Hi folks, and welcome to my little pen demonstration. I don't know how long this is going to be, but before we start, I want to apologize for the editing. There's going to be a lot of jump cuts in this where I go from one thing to the next very quickly without a nice smooth transition like you get in BBC and Paul Finley's videos and stuff and Mark's videos. I'm only learning with this editing thing, but I'm really scared. I've got about 15 clips in this and I'm really scared of losing something by playing about, so it's just going to be straight, stitch them together and hope for the best. Health warning. You see, I'm looking pretty disheveled at the moment. I can't shave because I'm being treated for sun damage that occurred when I worked in Canada 40 years ago. I worked for a company who made stained glass windows and did church restorations. So we're up on roofs quite a bit in 38, 40 degrees, direct sun. And that's very hot, you know, shingles are melting on the roof at that stage. But I got classic builder's sunburn and I got it across my forehead and on my face here. So I've been getting that liquid nitrogen treatment, which has been dead on. It's the most intense cold you'll ever feel, but I'm using a cream that has burnt me really badly. And here, this is all big, like a big scab last week and all over my forehead. Like I wouldn't even go out of the house, it was so bad, you know. So the warning is, it's a bit late for us boys, for most of us anyway, but for your children and grandchildren, get them to wear the sunscreen and the hats, because it was 40 years before I saw the sun damage appearing that I got all those years ago in the late 70s. So cover your head, cover your children's and grandchildren's heads and get the sun cream on, okay? If nothing else, learn something from this and let me be the model that you don't want to aspire to be, you know. So we'll get on with the pen thing. I don't know how long it's going to be. I'll tell you before I start when I get the whole thing stitched together. This video will be on our wood turning channel on YouTube. I'm not too sure how I'll organise this between Mark and me. I'll maybe get control of the login to upload it from here. Be the handiest thing probably, okay? But it will be on our own thing, so not that you'll be scared of missing anything, but if you do, it's going to be there again later on, okay? So hope you enjoy this. I've had kind of fun doing it. It's been a lot of stress involved. Hoping that I don't, when I delete things off the SD card, hoping that I don't delete the whole internet sort of thing, you know. But we've got something to stitch together, so I'll go and do that now. Okay, so here we go. Okay, this is going to be the best setup I can get for this. The camera's over to my side here and I'm trying to work at an angle of about 45 degrees. But from looking across the camera, it looks like we're in screen. Okay, so marking out the blank. I've got 3 walnut blanks here. Now, I'm just going to make a little slimline pen. And as you can see, we have got loads of space to play with here. So what I routinely do is, I get rid of the end of the blank. Because these are pretty good condition. Okay, those are in good condition. But you don't know if you harvested blanks yourself or somebody else has given them to you. You don't know how they were stored. So if you leave them for a while, they might start drying out at the end. So I routinely cut the end off. And then I mark my blank. Now, when I put my pen in, I allow for the curve for the cut. And then I give myself a wee bit extra, about 1 mil or so extra there. So I've got a bit of leeway. If the tube moves inside the blank, which has happened to me before, it usually moves about 1 millimeter or 2. So that gives me enough room that there's room for error. And then just bring that to the other side, give myself another couple of mil, and then give myself an eye bit in that end. And that's it done. So I want to try and keep my grain going. So put the witness marks in there. And then this is going to be W1, W1, because I've got 3 of these. Okay, so once I've got that marked out, that's got my thing now, and what I do then is I put my blanks back, I put my tubes back on again just to make sure I've got plenty of beef there, and I have. So that'll be the first pen blank marked out, and then we cut that one. So what I'll do is I'll do a few of these. I've got a bocote to do, and I've got all these boys here to do. This is stuff that Ricky gave me. I don't know what it is, some sort of trim. But I'm going to try this out. What I do is I make these pens and give them to delivery men, Amazon and the postman and stuff like that, because and Tesco's when they come, because they really looked after us during the whole COVID thing. So I give them a wee pen, they're delighted with it, you know, and it doesn't take much effort on my part, you know. But you think I give them £1 million sometimes. So there we go. So we've got our pen marked out. Next thing will be cutting it to size. Okay. On marking the blank, just remember something else I wanted to say. Okay, we get rid of a wee bit of stuff at the end, then we put our blank, our tube on, and we allow a wee bit for that. Now, if you want to get your grain to run perfectly, you need to take account of the bit in the middle here, a little ring in the middle. So it's a couple of mil wide. So just put a wee line in for it, and then mark your next blank. So it means that you've got that allowed for, and that will then allow for the skip in the grain between the two sides. So we just mark our thing, and that's going to be W2, W2. So cutting the blank, now I'll put gloves on for this bit because you're working close to a blade, and I just don't want to get caught. It's better get the glove nipped than me nipped, you know. So just, sorry about the noise here. And just gently in. Now what I do then is over here. Well, then I check that the blank actually fits now, that the tube will fit the blank, because if I mark these out and cut them all and I haven't checked that I'm actually cutting at the right length, it means that every blank I cut might be too short. So that's it done, and that's the first blank cut. And it's not critical because you're going to trim these ends off anyway, so I don't worry too much about being dead square here. So long as I don't go past this line, I know I've got plenty of beef. Okay? So once the blanks are all cut, I just set them on a page, and this, excuse me, this board's the one I use for everything basically, but it's not having enough blanks to fill it. But this is what I would do, and I've got my walnut, my bocote, and I think these are oak, and they're all lined up together. The blanks all match up, all the grains are going in the right direction. It means that I can take any blank out and I can put it back exactly where it goes, so I know where it's supposed to go. I've got that one there in the wrong place, you see. That Bacote one should be in there, and I think that there's Sapelli, so I've got those wrong around. That's why it should have been there. So this is going to be Sapelli down here, so write that in there, and then whenever I go, if I drop those, I know where they go. And I learned this from one time. I had this tray with about 200 pens ready to go, but none of the blanks were marked, and I knocked it off the drill press walking past, and it was great fun putting them all back together again because I'm profoundly colourblind, so my wife had to jump in there and help me, and it took us ages and ages, like doing a really complicated jigsaw because most of the pieces were the same, you know, the same type of wood. So I learned to mark everything then. So the next thing is going to be drilling these out, and I'll go to that next. So drilling the blanks, so we've got our orientation here. And what I do is I turn the two blanks so that the orientation is always, the centre's pointing towards the drill bit. Because if I want to keep the grain aligned, if I start from the centre out, it means that it's always aligned at that spot. So the drill bit does move slightly. It means that you're not moving your grain a couple of mil to one side or the other. So I line them up like this here. And then the drill bits I use are just standard 7mm drill bits. That's them there. And I get those in LJ Tools in Union Street in Lurgan. I just asked a guy for 7mm drill bits. The best, give me the best you've got, and he gave me those 10 for about £4 or something. They weren't overly dear, but they're really good drill bit, and I've had those going for a long time. And I've given them to people and everything, and there's people, if you got them, said they're still really sharp after a long bit of use, so don't spend a lot of money on drill bits. So I'm going to drill this. This is the third time I've done this section actually, because the other blanks, the walnut was screaming every time I did it, and then I would do a couple and it wouldn't scream, and I think, oh, that's great, I've got away with it, and then go to video it again and it starts screaming again. So the Bocote hasn't screamed yet, so we're going to give that a go and see how we get on. I just had you out of frame there for a second. So bring our drill up, and that's just pretty good there. Lock her down. I drill around about 500-600 probably, you know. It's not that critical, just that feels comfortable and doesn't burn up the drill bits, you know. Doesn't burn the wood, sorry. So slow, nice slow start, and then in we go. And hopefully we'll not have a whole lot of squealing and stuff this time. And then once I get in, I start backing off a wee bit just to get the swarf out, so it's not all of it doesn't start binding inside and squealing on me. Now, okay, this takes a wee while to do, especially when you're doing 100 different pens, you know, or 100 pens. But I just put the radio on there, and I've discovered Spotify, and I can listen to Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and pretend I'm 16 again, you know. So if the time goes in quick, and I don't mind doing this. The reason I drill on the lathe is because I have a lot more travel than I have on the drill press. The drill press just doesn't give enough travel to get right through the blank. I think it's 50 mil, and I think you need about 52 or 53 to get through a blank. So that's why I do it in the lathe. And I also know that my lathe is square. Keep my hand on the chuck all the time here, on the drill chuck, because I don't want this to come out. If it grabs inside the blank and then starts flying about all over the place, and you don't want to get out the side of the head. So we'll just stop our lathe, and I'll show you how I do with another blank. And it's the beauty of these jaws that I'm using. Let's see, I think I can do this round the top of you here. So we'll get this boy out, and so now this blank here is rectangular. So what these jaws have is there's little notches in the jaws there, and each jaw has got a little notch. So what I do is then I grab that in 2 notches. So it means if I grab that on a diagonal, it means that I must be drilling in the center. So it's the same procedure again. Now it looks like you've got 4 jaws, but 2 of them are just snugged up against it. There's just 2 holding. So the same procedure again. Bring it up nice and close. Start our lathe. Let it catch up to speed, and then nice and slow start. Nice and slow. And off we go. And once you get going in, you can go at a fair old lick, you know. And just clear the rubbish out. The other thing about doing pens then, and doing bulk pens, is that you don't have to do them all at once. You can do a few and then go in and do something else, and then come back out and do another half a dozen or so. And before you know where you are, you're through them all, you know, and the job's done. And I kind of like the production line type thing, you know. And it also gives you plenty of time to think about what you're doing and invent new steps that are totally unnecessary, but that keep me happy, you know. So there you go. I'll just drag that out and show you what it looks like. Just let it slow down there. So I can't reach anything because I'm on the other side of a camera here, and it's a bit awkward. I really should have a camera above me, but I'm not set up for that. And as you can see, bang on centre. So if you've got a blank that's got it's rectangular, just get the 3 jaws I got there. I'm sure most of them have them. I'm going to try and get in close to let you see them. You can just see the wee groove in the jaws there. There's a light caught it there, look. You can just see a light on it there now. And those wee grooves catch the edge of the blank and I shoo away. So the next thing will be gluing them up. So we're at the sanding stage now, and this is how I prepare the tubes. So I've got a bag of tubes here. What I do is, whenever I'm making pens, I take the tubes out and put them into this bag. So whenever I open this up, you'll see that these are all new tubes. Where am I at? Those are all brand new tubes, because I bought a bag of brass tubes one time, and it means that you just take a handful out and they're ready for sanding immediately, and you haven't to go through every single tube, every single bag of blanks, taking out all the tubes, or the kits, taking all the tubes out in one go. So I just do them all at one go, and then whenever I'm building the pens, I'll take the tubes from those and throw them back into that bag, and I'll have them for the next time. So we've got some very special gear here. I've got 2 old gloves, and you'll see what they're for in a moment. And they've been through the wars, these gloves, as you can see. But I've got the fingers are taped up with gaffer tape, and I'll show you why now. What I've got here is an Allen key. I've just cut the end off it there. So I use it as a mandrel, and I put the brass tube on it, and I've got a pad here with a 120 disc on it. So I'm going to run it on about 800. That's running about there at the moment. What do you see? About 800. Doesn't have to be fast. And then I just run that up the thing. And as you can see, it buffs the tube down. Just do another couple here. I'm a bit rusty doing this, I haven't done it for a while, you know. So if you're doing a couple of hundred of these, you can see you can get through them really quick. I've never done them on this lathe before, so I'm not too sure about the speed setting, and the height's all different from I'm used to as well. Well, the height's the same, but I'm in a slightly different position because of different lathes. So I'm finding the sweet spot basically, you know. But you see the principle of it anyway, how it works. Now you don't want to go at it too hard because you don't want to make the blanks so thin they slop about in the tube like a stick in a bucket or in the blank. Well, that's starting to get it now. That's all there is to it. And you get through a lot of blanks very quickly that way. But as I say, it's important that you use the tape on the fingers, because this will, when they start spinning, the end of that's like a little knife going round and round, so it'll get you. Okay, so that's the way I do the blanks for sanding the tubes. Quick and easy. Okay, so we're at the gluing in stage. You're sitting opposite me here in the kitchen table. Well, actually, you're standing on the kitchen table looking down at me. So I'm going to explain what I use and what I do here. So the first thing we need is gloves, because when you're working with glues, and especially with what do you call it? What do you call that stuff? Two-part epoxies. I tend to get that over myself. As you can see me rolling my sleeves up here, because I don't know what to do, but I managed to get it in the sleeves and everything, you know. But the glue is good to get it off your hands, because it's hard to get off your hands, you know. Okay, so what have we got? We've got our box of gloves. Okay with that. Beside me here I have a plastic bag, and that's hanging on the edge of a chair, just so that I can reach in and put stuff in as I need to, because it means that no dirt is travelling anywhere. I've got a magazine here, it's one of those catalogues, clothes catalogues, and what I do with that is I take a sheet off it, and that becomes the place where I set my blanks. And the reason I use this is because the blanks leak slightly, so there's going to be glue going on these, which means that the blanks get stuck together on the paper. So it means whenever you come back to sort them out, they're stuck together in pairs in one place, and you just tear off the bit you need, and you still have them on the paper. Now I know that some people stack them in like using dowels. They would stack them on a wooden block or something like that there, and stack them in pairs. I think Michael told me he did that, but I don't do that because I have this thing about the blanks moving. And what I've found is that sometimes whenever I was using epoxies and stuff like that there, I would find that the tube would kind of pull itself out. Now it mostly happened with glues, that, what do you call that glue, the foamy stuff? Gorilla Glue, so I don't use that anymore. So next thing I've got here is I've got dental wax, and the stuff I use is this stuff here, and you get that from Mulholland's in Glenavy or Crumlin. They're dental suppliers. Brian Mulholland, I think it is, he's the cheapest for it, and it's easy as got, because since Brexit came in, this stuff's, I'll be honest right now, I'm looking at the screen upside down, you see. He's the one that can get the stuff in. I'll just hold that up again so you can actually see it in orientation. So that's it there. We'll see what way do we go to get the camera. There. So Brian Mulholland around Glenavy or Crumlin, you get that in. And what I use that for is to seal the ends of the brass tubes. So I put a little bit in. It means that the glue doesn't go up the inside of the tube, because you're going to have to mill these at the end. So it's a very simple thing. You take your tube and then just press down and twist. Press down and twist, and that's your job. That's the job done. I've got 4 of these to do. I'm just going to do 4 to let you see just how fast it is. And I do this for all my blanks. And no matter what size of pen I'm making, I do this because I want to stop the glue getting up inside the tube, and this really helps, you know. It's dental modelling wax. I think it's about 1/8 of an inch thick for a sheet, and you get a box of about, many sheets than that. I think there's 20 sheets in that, and that'll last you for I've been using a box for 10 years, so you can see how long it lasts for. So it's good stuff. So we've got our things done. Now I'm going to show you something I do before I glue it. Sorry, I'm going to show you something I do with the blanks after I've glued them, but I'm going to do it just before I start so that I can, in case I forget to do it later on. These little dowels, to try and keep the blanks together, what I do is I take a dowel and I put a bit of masking tape on it, and then I take the glued blanks and I put them on the dowel, just like that, and then I put another piece of, I haven't got enough space here, I put it let it go too short, but you get the idea. I put another piece of tape on the other end. And it means that I can just keep that, and it's easy stored, and it's easy looked after, and it means that the blanks stay together in pairs. So it's a handy way to do it because I would mill all the blanks at once. So it means that I've got all these different blanks sitting ready to go, but not paired up. So just a really simple dowel keeps them paired up. Okay, so the gluing process, I use a 2-part epoxy, and it's made by Zap. It's Zap 2-part epoxy, and I use the 30-minute epoxy because I've found that the 5-minute epoxy goes off too quickly when I'm trying to do a whole load of blanks at one go. So I tend to use the 30-minute. Now, a wee word of warning, I used to say take a piece of cardboard and I would mix my glue. I'd mix my glue on the cardboard and then start using it, and then I'd go squeeze again, put some more on the cardboard, mix it up. But it started to go off almost as I mixed it. But what happens is, when the glue gets activated and the kicker starts kicking, I suppose, once it happened to the first lot, whenever you put the second lot on, the kicker from the first lot starts activating the hardener. So it means that you get a far faster reaction. So if you're using a bit of cardboard or a bit of old ply or something, once you've finished that set, get rid of it and get yourself a new piece and start again. Don't put glue on top of old glue. Okay, so gluing the blanks in. What I do here is, as you can see, I have got my blanks set out and I've got 2 tubes beside each blank because I want to know at the end that I've got all the blanks filled. There's nothing worse than starting to turn the blanks and you're going lovely and you reach a set of blanks and you discover that one of them hasn't got a tube in it. And it's kind of, oh no, if they get all this stuff out and start again. So, very simple process. Instead of mixing on paper, I use these little medicine dispensers. You get them off eBay, they only cost pennies for the hundreds of them. I've given loads of these away, and I still have as many will do me for the rest of my life maybe. And they're great because you just put in what you need. Now, I don't use any strict measurement here, just something close. So what I normally do, oh by the way, I store these upside down. As you can see, they're upside down because it means that the glue comes straight out when you press them. So I just go 1, 2. And that gives me a wee shot of glue. And then I go to the hardener or whatever. I don't know which one this is. Is this the kicker? I don't know. I think this is the hardener, or the glue itself. And then I just go, I don't go anything because that one's jammed up. Not the way it always goes in the demo. Hold on a second, I'll just get a wee. That's just now. Right. So I just go, I don't go anything. Don't tell me this stuff has gone hard on me. No, 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 no. Would you believe that? The stuff has gone off. The glue has gone off on me. I'm going to have to try something out here, folks. I'm just going to take some of this old glue and I'll just use it and let you see what way I do a thing. I'm going to get some more glue. This is the worst about keep getting glues and then not using them for a while. They sometimes go off. Now, the stirring sticks. I use these little things here. They're actually designed for, I've got a whole bag of them here. They're designed for mini eyebrow waxing spatulas. So I got them because they're like big long, where are you? They're like big long toothpicks and they're ideal for mixing glues together. So we'll just give this a mix. It's not looking very good, but let you give the idea of what's supposed to happen. And then whenever that's mixed, just take a tube, see the mat here, and then I just get some of that onto the thing and I just wipe it onto the tube. And I'm pretty liberal with it, you know, because it's not expensive, and I'd rather have too much than too little. But it's sure what to do with the bit that's left over. So we've got that, and then stick it into the tube. Now what I do, I put it in a wee bit, and then I push that stuff in, and then I put it in the other end, and I come back up here, and I roll off the wee bit that's in the end, and then, oops, sorry, I just push it on in, and you've got a wee bit left at the end there. And what I do with that is, I push that into the end of the next tube. So I'll just do the next one as well, and hopefully these will set up and I'll use them tomorrow. But what I'll do is I'll nip off into, what do you call it, in the morning and get some miter bond. Billy Ferris and Robbie have been telling me that they use the miter bond for pens and corian and stuff, and it works really well. So I'll go and get some in the morning, because now I'm in a situation where it's Friday evening. I've got all the videos done so far up to this stage, and I was hoping tomorrow to get turning the pens, but it's not looking like it's going to happen. So in with the tube, bring it back out, and then I just push that bit of glue back in again. I go in the other end, don't know why, I just do it, and then I've got a wee sort of bead of foam there, a bit of glue there. I push that in, and then I push that down with the tube, and then that's it done. And then I just take that and I set it on my piece of paper, and that's it done. And that's all there is to it, folks. There's no secrets or anything else. And then you've got your two tubes glued in. Now, how long do you let them sit? This is 30-minute epoxy. I let them sit for at least 12 hours. So if I'm doing this tonight, it's almost 9 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock now, just after 9 o'clock now. So tomorrow then, I'll get up tomorrow and I'll probably turn it in the afternoon sometimes. So that's 12 hours, you could say, give it before it's finished. So that's where we are, folks, and I have to go and get some more glue. I'm a bit disappointed. That's twice in a row that's happened on me now. Okay, so tomorrow will be turning time. All the best now. Bye-bye. I'm going to try and do this in one take because I have a few things to do, and it'll be quick. If I can do it in one go, it'll be better, but we'll have a go anyway. Okay, here's your barrel trimmer for cleaning out the barrels out of the pen blanks. Now, the problem with this is that these teeth can cause a problem with these small tubes. Okay, and what I've found in the past is that whenever I drilled out or milled the end of the 7mm blanks, that I ended up with a little tiny ridge at the end of the blank where a tiny bit of brass, about 0.5 millimeter, was shown. And for a long time I couldn't quite work out what was going on, and I suddenly realised that what was happening was these teeth are set in such a way that whenever the mill starts, they actually cut, and the barrel, the blank actually fits. That blank's now sitting between, that's sitting between the teeth now. So it means that whenever I'm drilling, when I'm milling, it means I'm milling in wood, and then I hit the brass. But it just keeps going and cuts down the outside of the brass and leaves me with a perfectly flat surface circle, but this wee bit of brass, so you bring a brass sticking up. So I stopped using this boy and I went to this method instead. And what I do here is I've got a mandrel and a blank, and I've got a mandrel here, and I've got a Morse taper here. Now this is one of these mandrels you can buy and convert into whatever you want to convert into and mill it. But I've just got a wee 1-inch sanding pad on it. And what I did then was, I'll just start the lathe up and show you. I'm not going to touch this because I want to do it another way. I just bring the thing up, and then whenever that's running, I just touch that, okay? And that mills it down lovely and gives you a flat surface. Now the reason I had to do that was because I was making a pen called the Sierra single barrel type, and I couldn't get them to line up properly. Whenever I built the pen, the mechanism didn't work properly. So, excuse me moving you about here, but I'm trying to do everything at once here. Okay, so this has worked out not too bad. And of course the lights, the sun's right in the way here. I'm going to pull everything forward a bit. So, that's better there, I think. Yeah. So, sorry about all this messing, folks. So, when I was doing the Sierra blanks, I was getting, at the end of the blank, I was getting it wasn't completely square. So that's why I started using the method I just showed you. And it gave me a real nice square end. But then I discovered this method, and I used this thing here. I showed you it before. You get them from America, and they're not there, about $20, about $40 by the time they arrive, you know. And you can put this on either side, depending if you're left-handed or right-handed. You've got a screw hole on both sides for the wee machine screw. And this is just a piece of 7mm bar. And what I do is here, I just put the blank on, and then I run that up to the disc, and I can turn that on this block, and it means that I have a lot of more control. And I have got now with doing this that I can hear the difference between wood and brass. So whenever I hear the difference, I know I've hit brass then, and I've got a perfectly flat end on the blank. And it's important to remember that you are not squaring the tube to the blank. You're squaring the blank to the tube, because you don't want to end up in a situation where you've got a lovely square blank, but your tube's sitting on it like that. And then when you make the pen, you're going to be sitting like that. So you need to make sure that the blank is squared to the tube. So that's why you need to have this arrangement here, so that I know that whenever I've finished, whatever state this is in, it's square to the tube inside. So we'll just give this a quick run through and let you see how it works. Now, one of the things I noticed this was, I had a 6-inch sander like this, and it was absolutely ideal, but then one day I was in Sam's and there's money burning a hole in my pocket, and it was Christmas, and I bought this and it's too big. But anyway, I work in this area here, you know. This thing here is just it's a 120 disc, and then I clean it with this rubber thing every so often, and it lasts for a long time. So I'll just show you what I do here briefly. Turn it on. Well, it's not turned on because I pulled it out of the wall. Hold on a second. I wondered what the resistance was when I was pulling that across the floor. I was pulling the plug out of the wall, and would you believe it? I've actually broken the plug. Oh, this is just the way it goes. I've actually broken the pin on the plug. I'll show you my latest disaster here. Look. I broke the pin when I pulled it out of the plug, and now it's stuck in the plug. Right, so that's the end of that wee bit there. I'm going to have to do this again. I'm just going to try and squeeze this in somewhere. This is the barrel trimmer we were talking about, and I don't use the barrel trimmer, as you know, but I do use this piece of it. The wee cutter, the bit with the cutter at the end of it. And what I do is I put it in the drill, and then whenever I'm taking the wax out of the ends of the tubes of the blanks. Now these are blanks that I set up on the night before, last night I think, to have spares in case things went wrong today, because I only had the one set of blanks. Remember, my glue went off on me. Well, I did these with miter bond. Billy got me onto the miter bond, and Robbie. So if it doesn't work, it's Billy's fault. But as I say, I use this now for clearing out the inside of the blank. So just a strange angle, and then just push it in. And I don't actually do any milling at the end of it. All I'm doing here is I'm just knocking out the dental wax at the end, you know, and that's it done. Now, a wee bit of advice: wear a glove, because this thing will spin. You can see it's got caught in there now. So just wear a glove, okay? But that's just a wee tip. But I still use this, but just for clearing the wax out of the ends. But what it also does is it takes any glue out of the inside as well. So I'm just going to leave that last wee bit in, just to let you lot see how much I suffer for you. So here we have our blank. I've got the wax out of both ends, and I've got my mandrel here. So as you can see, the mandrel is just shorter than the blank, so I'm not going to end up grinding the end of this here. Now this is very vicious if you get too close to the side. And what I try to do is I just kind of hold it with my hand here, but it means I'm going to be in the way a wee bit. No, not too bad, right? So we go at this and see how we get on. It doesn't take a bit longer than normal because I'm very rusty at the moment, you know. There's it, that's it there, look. That's a great job there for cleaning up. Look at the other end. There we are. I don't know if you heard the wee beat or the wee sort of grinding noise that hit the brass, but that's it. So that's the two blanks done. I had a wee practice on this one here, you see. These are the blanks I glued up last night, and it seems the glue seems to be holding all right, you know. So, next thing will be turning these boyos. Alright. Okay, so I'll just nip round the other side here. Right, this is all a different setup from normal, because I normally do a sort of different lathe. But this one allows me to put the camera opposite me, so it looks as if you're standing on the other side of the lathe. Okay, so we've got our pen mandrel. These are all designed for 7mm. I think they're 6.8 to allow for the bushings or something, but or to allow for the tubes to go up the inside of them. But anyway, whatever they are, all the bushings fit all the mandrels. So the bushings just get thicker, but the internal bore of all the bushings is the same to fit this here. Normally we would get a screw at this end. The screw on this one is at the other end, but imagine there's a screw there. Well, what we normally do is we put a little brass screw on here, tighten it in to tighten the blanks, and then we bring our cone centre up to support the end. There's a wee dimple at the end of it. But the problem with that is that if the blanks get loose, we tend to turn the hand wheel to tighten them, but we're actually just pushing the bar, and you can actually bend the bar, which is not a hard thing to do, believe it or not. So what I do is, I have in my drawer, I have a spare bar. What does that cost? £8.76. Now, it's worth getting that, excuse me, because the time you're going to need it is when you're doing pens, because you're not going to bend the bar when you're not using it. So I always have one in reserve, because I tend to leave things to the last minute, like this video. It's Sunday morning now, so other stuff going on in the background, so that's my excuse. But what I use instead is this Mandrel Saver, they call it. It's just basically another revolving centre with a hole down the middle, and it goes on. Now, a wee tip for these, I noticed that this one was getting a wee tiny bit of slop in it, so I put a brass tube down the inside of it, and it's worked perfectly ever since. So that just goes into the tailstock. I just stick it in there. You can't see it there. So that goes into the tailstock, and then it'll push the bushings up. So you use the quill to push the pen together rather than the wee brass nut. And then whenever you want to adjust the pressure on it, you just turn your hand wheel, and the pressure's going on the bushings all the time. It's not going on this here, so you tend not to bend this. So we get our slimline bushings out. These are old bushings. I like using old bushings for slimlines because of the way I turn the ends in. So one on, and then we keep our orientation. Now this is where I get it really like OCD goes overboard. Keeping orientation at all times, so when I build the pen, it's always built in the same direction. So I always build the pen from the cap end to the nib end. So I always have the nib end down at the quill, and I do that for every single pen I make. Even if it's only got one barrel, I still make it the same way. And then this comes up and just slides in lovely. That lathe, this lathe is lined up beautifully. It's a Jet 3520B. The same as a Powermatic that all the boys boast about in America. And I got it from a friend. He was stopping wood turning, and he basically made me buy it, you know. Now I'm just checking on my hands here, so how tight these are. And they just seem to be a nice tightness, they're not over tight. So I'll lock that down, and I bring my tool rest in. Now I normally have lots of lights here. I normally have a lot of light over above me to light this up for myself. But I had a lady here the other day, a cousin of mine was in here doing a wee video she wanted to do about wood turning, and she asked me to turn the lights off because it was affecting the white balance on her video. So I'm going to leave the lights off, and maybe it'll work okay. So in position now. Now I used this baby for doing things. It's a 1 1/4 inch roughing gouge, and that's the only thing I use for pens because it's very long. So a very small movement here is virtually nothing, you know. So you can make very delicate movements, and you hardly move the end of it at all. So I'm just getting a wee bit too high there. I've never turned a pen in this lathe before. I used the one across the way all the time, so this is a new experience for me. So I'm going to have to get used to the speed and stuff. So I've got this in the highest setting. So the lathe turned off. When you've got variable speed, turn your lathe down all the time, because you don't want to put something on and start at high speed and get a slap in the mouth. So we're turned on. Oh, we are turned on too, look. And I'm just going to wind this up. It goes to about 3600 this speed, but I'm not going to go to that speed. I'm sitting about 2,500 here, which is what I normally turn at. So I'm going to keep it like I don't want any surprises. So here we go. Normally I wear a face mask for this, but I need to talk. So just basically on, find the bevel. Now, a wee tip here just on turning pens. Don't come in from the end here, okay, at the start, because you have 4 corners coming around. Pens are very thin, so you haven't much waste, much bulk here. So you're more liable to come around here and the corner of this catch in the gouge and just rip a big lump out along the side. And it happens to us all. So I tend to start from the middle and go out. Now once you've got the corners off, you're okay, but I tend to try not to come in from the outside. Now you'll probably see me coming in from the outside because I've done this so often, but I try not to, because I have had blanks. I've made hundreds of pens, but I've had blanks still. I'll rip the corner off depending on the wood, you know. So this is, what is this? Okay, this walnut. Walnut's usually pretty good, but I still take no chances. So I'll just come in from the outside. I'll not come in from the outside. So here we go. Okay, so we're down fairly slim now. Now, we can go further than that, but these are worn bushings, remember? So it means that if I go any further, I could end up going below where the bushings were, so I'll not get a good join. But I always leave the pens a wee bit wider anyway. There's two reasons. One is it's hard to get the pen exactly square to the bushings. And I've only ever seen it done really well once, and that was by Jim Johnson. Showed me a pen he made in the woodshed one night, and it was absolutely exquisite, an ordinary slimline, and it was absolutely beautiful. And what made it even more impressive was it was made with stabilised bog oak, and it was just lovely. So what I do is, people tend to find, when I'm giving them pens, they tend to take the ones that are slightly heavier. So I like to leave these a wee tiny bit heavy. So that's about as thick as they'll be. Then what I do then is I turn the end over. And what that does is it gives a wee bit of a round over there. So whenever I put the nib section in, it gives a nice smooth transition. So I'll show you how to do that now. I'm down to about as thick as I want to be here. So I'll show you how to do the wee round over thing. It's just a wee tiny touch. And I'll probably make a mess of it now because I haven't done it for a long while. So just on and just brush towards the front. That's it done. And then swap sides. Now, what that has done is now, it has left me, I've got a wee tiny bump at each end now, which is what I knew was going to happen anyway, because that's what happened when you do this wee thing, but I don't want that bump now, so I'm going to reduce that very slightly. I'm going to use a tool, but you could use sandpaper if you were a bit nervous about getting in this close to the bushings, you know, so you could use sandpaper. I'm just going to touch it with a tool. It's only a wee tiny touch too, it's not much. I'm just stroking the wood here, not actually cutting it as such, I'm just stroking it. Now it's a bit heavy at this end, so I'm just going to take a bit more off. I want to keep that wee round over there. I don't want to lose that, because then the rest of it won't match up. Right, I'm happy with that. So there's a couple of wee things I want to adjust, but I'll take that out with the sanding. So get this out of the way. Look at the length of that thing there, my goodness. Right, so sanding, so we turn our lathe down to sand. Now what I'm going to use is just, I'm going to start off at, what I'm starting at, 180, 240, 320, 400 and 500. It's not very much, it'll only take a few minutes to do this here. So, I'm feeling the blank to see if there's anything I want to take off. There's a wee tiny edge there I want to touch. Right, so, on the lathe, I'm going to turn it down a bit now. Here, I'll tell you a wee story with this lathe. The speed wasn't working on it, and I went, oh right, so I looked it up. It's going to cost me, I think, $280 to get the sensor. So I went on to one of the wood turning forums, and I put in speed sensor not working on Powermatic, and it went, there's a wee tiny screw that holds the sensor, it holds the little piece of metal that, or a little magnet or something that hits the sensor, and it comes loose. So I went in and just touched it with a wee tiny Allen key or something, whatever it was, and it's fixed perfectly for $280. Would you be sick if you bought the whole thing, you know? Right, so I'm just going to start the sanding here. So it's very simple, just ends. I always do the ends first because they're the most important. That's what people's going to feel, you know. I've got a wee bulge here I want to get rid of, but I don't want to lose that wee end bit either, you know. Now this is the pen that I glued up the other night with the rubbishy glue. So I'm obviously not going to give this to anybody. So that's it done now. Another wee thing I do, I love adding steps in. A wee tiny blow of air. Now you don't need to go blowing stuff all over the workshop, but just enough to take off the old bits of dust. So from here on, all I'm doing now is taking out the lines from the previous one, and that's all there is to it. We're 320 now. As you can see, it doesn't take a whole lot of sanding because that's lovely and smooth now. And I'm probably sanding more than I need to here, Now, at 400, what I do is I do 400, and I'm pretty confident that I've got most of the lines out by now. I'm going to stop the lathe, give a wee puff, give the sandpaper a wee puff as well. And then I just do this. I just go up and down the grain. So if there's any wee circles on it, that'll take them out. And I'm using a very high grit. So it means that, a very fine grit I should say. High number. And it means that any wee circles in that are now probably removed. But you have to check first. So lathe on. And then turn it off. You do a lot of inspecting with pens. You do a lot of inspecting, particularly with acrylic pens. You're sanding for ages with water and everything there, I'm not going to do an acrylic pen because you'll be here all day. The actual making of the pen is probably the fastest bit of all. Right, so that's basically it now. That's 500. Turn it off, give it a wee puff. And that's that. Now, I'm looking here, everything looks bang on there. So we've got a cloth. I just used a blue towel and out of the lovely dispenser that Ricky gave me. And very fancy workshop this, I can tell you. So, what I also do is, I mightn't fit in here because it's a different board, but yes it is. I put that in, right? I put that in, I'll not affect your balance too much. It's just an ordinary workboard. It means that anything I drip on the lathe, it doesn't stick on the bed. And I don't mind a wee bit of rust on the bed and stuff like that, just rub it off. But I don't want glue and finish and stuff. It's going to affect the way the tailstock travels and the banjo. So, a wee bit of sanding sealer. This is Mandrel's sanding sealer and thinners mixed 50-50. Now, I used to mix it 4-to-1, 4 thinners to 1 Mandrel's. And then I was down in Monaghan doing a demo one day and I was talking to you about this, and Harry Emerson said that he uses that on dashboards and stuff for cars. And he said, when he's restoring walnut dashboards and that, and he uses it neat. So I said, what about when you're turning? He said, use it neat as well. So I tried it neat when it's turning, and it goes on, and it goes on well. But I've got so used to using it a bit thinner that I'm still thinning it. So instead of doing 4-to-1, I do 50-50 now. So it's a good bit thicker than it was. And I've found the thickness that I like now. So just give it that there and make sure it's dry. And then what I do is I spin the lathe to make sure I've got all the sanding sealer out. See, there's a wee bit come out the corner there. You don't want the sanding sealer on when you're putting your wax on, because there's thinners in it. Right, that's dry now. And then what I do then is I get a wee bit of knife web. Well, if you want unnecessary steps, I'm your man. Now that sealer would have lifted the grain slightly, so I just give it a wee touch of that there. I don't actually sand it as such. I'm just knocking the grain back, knocking any high point spots off. And that stuff there, it lasts you forever and ever and ever. I bought a box of it one time about 8 years ago, and I've given pieces to everybody, and I'm still using it. And then just finally a wee tiny, just in case, And then the wax. I use good old wood wax 22, but there are many other types of proprietary waxes that will do exactly the same job. That's the one I like. But a wee tip in here for you as well. I use the knife web in here as well. One of my problems, not so much with pens, but with bowls, was that I was putting on too much wax. And then what happened was, when I was polishing the bowl, I was getting these bright lines around the inside of the bowl where the wax had gone on heavier than other spots. As you can see what I'm doing here, I haven't very much wax on. There's probably enough wax in that wee cloth to do the job. I'm just putting it on like this, so I'm going up and down the grain to get the wax into the grain. And then we'll leave it for a few minutes to dry, and I'll just talk to you for a few seconds. So I was talking about wax, and yes, I was putting too much wax on, and it meant that whenever I was polishing the bowls, I ended up with these bright lines where there was more wax in some places than others. So then I was watching somebody, I don't know if it was in the woodshed or online, I think it was in the woodshed, and they were using a little cloth inside their thing. That's a good idea. Maybe even Paul actually was using a bit of cloth, and that's a good idea. And then of course I had to take another step where I thought, well, if I use Nightweb, that's going to knock the top back as well as put the wax on, you know. So that's what I've been using for a long time, and it seems to work, and I've had no issues with the wax. So there's wee bits of wax sitting up in that now, but they'll soon be knocked off. So fresh piece of cloth, folks. Now this is really, see, this is where the, oh, here we go again, a new thing to obsess about. Right, so on this here, you have two different grains. You've got a rougher grain on one side than the other. This is actually very good quality. I can't see any difference in this stuff. But some of them you'll see that on one side has got a bit of a grain on it. So I don't use that side, I use the smooth side. But this is good quality stuff. I got imported down, and an auto factor's there. And it looks like it's good stuff. And then we just start off, and I just run the lathe about 2.5 or so. And I keep moving the cloth, because you don't want your wax to become an abrasive. Because if you get wax on your cloth and it goes dry on the cloth, then you put that cloth back on again, it becomes an abrasive. So you don't want that. Now what you'll see is if you do the pen, you'll see a certain cloudiness where the wax is getting, you have too much wax on. So I just push that down to the end of the pen, and I know it's off. And that's it. Now ideally, I wouldn't touch this pen for 3 days. But that's just not realistic. Eric Turner was I went to a class with Eric in Portadown, and he was saying that whenever he makes a little box or anything, once he waxes it, he doesn't touch it for 3 days to allow the wax to go off and harden. Because if you do touch it within that time, there's a chance you might put a fingerprint into it, and then the fingerprint will harden in the wax. See what I'm doing here? I'm continually turning the wax, or turning the paper to a nice clean spot. So paper is a consumable, it's cheap, and you don't go back over again with the same spot. Because I tried to economise with sandpaper, and it was the worst economy ever, because what I saved in money I lost about 400 times in time. This here, right, this is a piece of P180. After it's used, it becomes a piece of used 180. It doesn't become a P240 because it's been slightly used. And then after it's used again, it doesn't become a P320. And after it's used again, it becomes a P400. And so on. You get a lot of this on the American forums, not so much here. Boys claiming that as you use the grit, it knocks the head off and becomes a finer grit. It doesn't. It knocks the head off the grit that's designed to work, which is P180 in this situation, and that becomes old P180. So don't try to economise by reusing your sandpaper. The most I do is I would give it a wee puff like this. Where are we? Just to take the heavy off it and then use it. But see, once it gets like that there, with wee brown marks on it, I'll use that wee bit there again on another pen, but that's scrap after that. And it's the best thing I ever did was starting to, as I say, use sandpaper like somebody else is paying for it. Okay, now, the next thing has to be done with military precision. This has to go over there to the bench. So I'll turn you off and I'll bring you over to the bench when I get this done. But in the meantime, what I'll have done is I'll have taken these off and carried them carefully over to the bench with a piece of cloth around them so they don't try and keep my fingerprints off them as long as possible. And then I'll set them down in the orientation I want to build the pen. So we'll head over there shortly, okay? Okay, so we've got it all laid out here, and if you've been paying attention, you know that I build pens from right to left, or left to right, but that's the orientation always. And even the transmission's in the right orientation. You do not want to put your transmission in the wrong way round. But a wee tip on this, when you get your transmission, there'll be oil on the transmission, so I always take that off. Okay, but the most important part of this process is to make sure that the transmission is actually working. And I think you can see, what do I see if I can get into the camera? Can you see, whoops, can you see the transmission moving up and down there? So we know that transmission is working. It's kind of soul destroying when you make a pen and you put it together and the transmission is not working. So that's kind of bad. Now, the blanks, those are the tubes out of the new kit. So they go into the slimline bag. And that means that I have those for the next pens I make. And as I keep building pens, I fill that bag up again. And then I've got maybe 30 or 40 blanks to start tubes to sand at one go. The other wee thing I do is I also clean the insides of the tubes themselves, of the blanks themselves, because I've found that sometimes you get a wee bit of dirt on the inside, and that affects the way, look, you can actually see it there on the end of that a wee bit, and that affects the way the pen goes together. And in my head, what I'm saying here is front and back. So this one here, I'm going to do this one. So this is the front I'm doing. So just keep on the front and back. And that keeps me orientation as well. Okay, so now I've got that done. I'm going to move you down there so that I can put the pen together. But as you can see, it's all sitting in the orientation in which it goes. Another wee tip, incidentally, I meant to say was, before you put your refill, make sure your refill is working. Okay, so just give it a wee scribble and make sure it's working. That's not as critical because it's not working. Take one out of another kit, and you can buy 10 of these for a couple of quid, you know. Okay, so I'm going to move you over here. So I'll turn you off. Right, so this is a pen press that I bought. It's not a pen press, it's a 2.5-ton arbor that I got off Axminster. Now I've got it built up on blocks here because I have a problem with my neck and my back, and I can't bend forward to see what's going on here, so I bring the work up to me. It makes it a lot easier. Another wee tip that I got with this was, if you take the 2 back teeth out here, it means that if you are trying to find, let's see now, just get something that's I'm not too worried about. Say you want to press something and the handle's in the wrong position, okay? What you can do is bring it back and bring it round to, and the teeth allow it to slip, and then you can put it back where you need to make the thing. That's a wee tip I got off a guy on YouTube, and I thought it was a brilliant tip, you know. Okay, so first part is, we'll do the nib first. And then in here, what I've got in between the legs is, see, I bought this, and I started pressing and discovered when I pressed, the whole thing went up in the air. So I had to make this little top hat affair with a hole in it. And then the lid goes on for pressing the short parts, and it comes off for doing the long parts. You'll see how it works. But that sits in between, and then the flange here presses down on that. So it means that the whole thing's not lifting up as I do the pen. So, nib first. So that's it in position, and then just, there you go. And I'm very happy with that. That's a good transition. And then the transmission, and you can see here, take this out, and then this all fits in then. So just push in a wee bit. I'm trying to I have to keep the pen as straight as I can to do this, because I don't want to split the wood, because it's easy enough done, you know. Because it's only a wee small bit of wood. Now, you've got a wee line here that tells you where to press to. I go to almost to that, and then I take it out, and I put a refill in to make sure that I'm getting the distance I want. So look, it's coming out already, okay? So I want about another couple of mil just. Now if I had pressed on down to where it said, it would have been too long. The lovely thing with that press is you can get a lot of pressure on very gently, if you know what I mean. It doesn't jump down. You look, so that's about nice there. That's okay. I'm happy with that. So the other thing is too, if you have made a pen, right, if you've made a pen and you've got one end slightly shorter than the other, that end can go on here, because as you can see, you've got a couple of mil to spare at the cap end. So if you've got a short end and a long end, use the short end for the cap, and it means you get away with it. Get away with murder, you know. Right, so where are we at now? So the centre band goes on. Don't think you need to see me doing that. And put our cap in now. Now I'll show you a wee tip about the cap, just as I do. It's not critical, but it keeps me happy, as I say. Now before I press it down completely, I'd look to see where the nice grain is. I want to show that, so it's kind of dead there. So I'll hold it there to finish pressing the cap on. That's it done. And then we just put our pen together. And then you can orientate the grain by closing the pen and then just turn it against itself, and that'll line it up. And that's it, pretty good there. Okay, so there you are, folks. One slimline pen, done and dusted. So I'll try to touch that. And what do I use these for? I used to put them in a shop, but it wasn't worth my while really. At the end of the day, it became a job. My hobby became a job. So I stopped that, and what I do with these now is I make about 50 or 60 of these at a time, and then when delivery men and postmen arrive with stuff from Amazon and Tesco and that, they get a pen. Because during the COVID thing, myself and Rosemary, we had to isolate, and I had to isolate very, very strictly actually, so I couldn't go anywhere. So we depended on these guys a lot to get our food and stuff. My son was a huge factor in that as well, but when he was working, we needed other people. So when the delivery men come, they get a pen, and they love it. They absolutely love it. And what does it cost? £2. Maybe I get them from Australia, so £1.50 or £2 for a pen, and it means a lot to somebody, you know. And so there you are. So that's not going to anybody, just in case it fails. But I got through the demo anyway. So hope you enjoyed that, folks. I hope it wasn't too long. And any questions, I'd be glad to answer them now. All the best then. Bye bye.